Hello everybody, I'm Zella Compton, I'm the editor of Marine Industry News, and I was just about to start talking before I'd unmuted myself. Anyway, I hope that you're all well and happy on this glorious day. Well, it is on the south coast anyway. So I'm really delighted to welcome you to Marine Industry News' second Women in Marine event, sponsored by Barton Marine. And today we're looking at flexing business muscles post-pandemic. So this session is going to be led by Karen Dickens from Committee Boats. I first came into contact with Karen about a year or so ago for the Ocean Village Boat Show, and I was so intrigued by her career and her story and everything she had to say and the beautiful boats that she's importing as well. And I'd really like to tell you all about her because I'm so excited just by knowing her and listening to her, but that would steal her story and her thunder. So, as you know, we've set up these Women in Marine sessions to hear more from women who work in the marine world. We want to explore their roles, their challenges and their futures, and to help build a brilliant network which we can all call on when needed. So I'm just going to run through a little bit of housekeeping first. We're going to record this seminar to publish on MIN's social media channels in the future, so we can refer back to it. If you have any questions during the session, please use the chat function and then we can come to those at the end. If you want to see everyone who's here, you click on the top right-hand grid in the top right-hand corner and press gallery view. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take a image of the seminar in a minute, so please turn your cameras on if you wouldn't mind, so we can do a smiley screenshot in a minute. That would be really nice. But first, I am delighted to introduce you to Suzanne from Barton Marine. She's joining us. She's our sponsor, so she's going to say a few words, and then we'll come back to me and we'll do the screenshot, the team photo, and then we'll get ready to go. So, Suzanne. Have we lost Suzanne?
Can you hear me now?
Yes, fantastic.
I just want to thank everybody for attending. It's always a privilege and an honor for Barton Marine to sponsor events for women to get together and be able to meet each other and have a network. We always invite the men along, and we are excited to see some of those guys with us today too. But this is especially exciting today to co-sponsor this with Marine Industry News, because we have Karen Dickens here and we're all waiting to hear what she has to say. So thank you, Karen, for coming and speaking to us. And thank you, Marine Industry News, for letting us all get together today.
That's lovely. Thank you, Suzanne. Thank you as well. Lots of thanks already. So I'd like just to take that team photo if we could. If you have a Marine Industry News mug handy, well, now's the time to raise it. And if not, would you just smile cheerfully at the camera, and on the count of three, in three, well, three backwards, 3, 2, 1. Perfect. Thank you so much. So now I'll hand you over to the lovely Karen. Sit back and enjoy.
So thank you all ever so much. I'm delighted to be with you here today. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about myself, and then I'll talk about Committee Boats UK and Caribbean. Given that we're a relatively new company to the UK market, I'll then go on to talk a little bit about the impact of the pandemic before I close by looking at the importance I personally place on giving back and charity sharing, plus also my view and my worry list, if you like, of what I think could impact the marine industry in the next 1 to 2 years. So starting with a little bit about myself, I'm actually doing this call from Ascot, which is a long way away from the water. But I grew up and went to school in Cornwall. And as you'll see from my career, it's very different from what you might expect from somebody who has a PhD in physical organic chemistry. I worked for ExxonMobil for 29 years and had an amazing career both in the UK and internationally, but all very much with retail focus, although actually at one point I did have the marine organization reporting to me. I then left and spent an amazing 2.5 years as the CEO of MRH, which is the largest independent service station group in the UK, working very much in a finance and PE environment, prior to a record-breaking sale of the company. And at that point, I decided I was going to retire and actually spend my time working on the charity programs that I've been supporting all the way through my career, and actually not do anything else. Well, it didn't kind of quite turn out like that, as you'll hear. And I founded Committee Boats UK and Caribbean. And then during the pandemic, we've founded the Your Bespoke collection. And I'm going to talk a little bit about that later on. So let's move on to a little bit about Committee Boats. I'm a through and through sailor. Really haven't had a big passion for powerboats. And after MRH was sold, had been working alongside the lovely team at Discovery Boats, building my beautiful new 58-foot boat all-time high. But then decided I really needed something to get me from A to B more quickly than I was able to do on a sailing boat. And I'd looked at lots of powerboats with no success until I was sitting in one of my favourite restaurants, the Jetty in Christchurch, and talking to Alex Aitken, the chef. And he introduced me to Committee Boats, showed me some photos, shared his experience of being on one. And within 2 weeks, I was sitting beside the shores of Lake Como in the wonderful committee office and yard, and had ordered my first committee, which is Venezia 34, which is currently in Barbados. And then quite quickly after that, Property of a Lady, which is a beautiful Braver 35, which is currently sitting in Buckler's in Bewley. So within 2 weeks, I was a powerboat owner and absolutely loved my committee boats. And so did everybody else. So we had so many questions and so many requests for information. I couldn't sit still and not do anything with it. So I became the exclusive UK and Caribbean importer and distributor of committee boats. And we set up our first office in Lymington in the UK, and then the second office in Port Ferdinand in Barbados. For more information, you can see it on committeeboatsuk.com. And pulled together the new organisation and the new company very quickly, supported by my wonderful group of partners, who I'll talk about a bit later, who I've worked with for a number of years. Committee boats have a core group of 4 models: the Braver, Venezia, the Isola, and the Delegno. All absolutely beautiful boats, a mixture of both contemporary and classical Italian designs. And within Committee Boats UK and Caribbean, we work very closely with our customers to understand what their need is and tailor the boat, bringing in expert craftsmen to help as appropriate. And you see from the photos on the right side of the screen, the amazing work that Joe from Heritage Inlay Designs has done on a number of our boats, making custom-made tables. The Braver is the latest model in the range, currently available as a 35 and a 29. The 26 launches this summer, and the 42 is under development. 42 going to be really interesting, as it's going to be the largest boat in the range. If you're interested in more information, there's also a great article on motorboats and yachting on the Braver 35 in the February edition. Probably the core of the range is the Venezia. That's available in 5 different sizes and in 4 different finishes, both as a sport boat, as the elegance, and as the classic, both in teak and in mahogany. And as you see from the pictures, another amazing table from Joe. And as you see from the center picture, this absolutely isn't the UK. That's the beautiful Caribbean sea and sun. But these boats work really, really well in a number of different locations, whether you're in the Solent, in miserable weather, whether you're in the Caribbean, in bright sunshine, whether you're on rivers or lakes, all of the boats work brilliantly in different conditions. The next boat in the collection is the Isola, currently available as a 33-foot boat. This is a great boat because of its ease of walking around for both families, but actually we sell a lot as a super yacht tender. You see from the picture, you can walk all the way around the boat. It has a great amount of seating, and it really is a day boat, but you do have a small heads on it. So that you know, you can use it with showers, etc., during the day. And then finally, and isn't this absolutely stunning, the Delejno. This goes back to the start and the center element of the committee boats, full wooden boats. I have to say this one is the Portofino, is the next on my shopping list. I'd love to have one of these. Can you imagine it going up and down the river on the Thames? Absolutely stunning. So those are the 4 boats in the range. As you see, very much building in terms of style and design, one from the other, but each having its own unique elements that makes it attractive to different customers, and really does encompass our tagline of not only a boat, but a lifestyle. And again, a reminder, you can see more information on these on committeeboatsuk.com. Now, we started the company just before the start of the pandemic, so not a great timing. And we have had challenges associated with people being able to come to the boats and to be able to do trials, etc. But equally well, we've had some great PR and tests, etc. And we're really looking forward to May and June when the UK reopens and we can start taking customers out on our boats again. But, you know, when we look at the pandemic and actually Brexit, it's amazing how Brexit seems to have kind of disappeared into the background. But, you know, 19 and 20 and 21 have really been the perfect storm of everything coming together. I'm constantly reminded by my friends that I was sitting in Barbados over dinner with them in February, saying that I really thought the pandemic was going to be a storm in a teacup and would be over in next to no time. Well, it just goes to prove how wrong I was, and 12 months on, we're still seeing the impact of that. Now, during the early phases of the pandemic, it was really, really clear that there was a massive lack of resilience. But many companies reacted really quickly. Others didn't, and they have failed. But other companies really flourished and grew very, very quickly, bringing in new brands, new ideas, etc. And I think it's interesting to explore why some succeeded and why some failed. I spent most of my career managing major changes and big product introductions and changes, etc. Not just the MRH transformation, but my last job in ExxonMobil was introducing the Synergy brand to enhance the ExxonMobil and Esso fuel brands around the world, both the products, the advertising, and the sites. So I'm used to dealing with change. But the thing that's really hit me this time is it's almost impossible to predict the changes and what the outcomes are going to be. The pandemic has been so complex, and the high speed of shifts has really meant that the only way to survive is by changing holistically. So not looking at small parts of the company, but really looking at it holistically and changing as a company. And having that resilient future mindset that really makes sure that we look at the business as positively as we can. I know it's been tough, but those people who have been successful have invested and had a positive approach. And you really see from this great chart that I love of organizational DNA, the adaptability and resilience in my mind and the changes holistically are what have enabled people to survive and grow versus other people declining. So always look for those positive opportunities. On the news, we hear any number of times about the new norm and what the new norm is going to look like. Well, I've had a stab here at putting together what I think it's going to look like from a business perspective. And you see 7 key areas. The largest of those, which I'm sure you're all very aware of, is around the workforce working remotely and how we continue to take the positives of that going forward, as well as putting back in place more socialization, more working together, etc. But I do believe working from home is going to be part of the long-term future. And to do that, it requires companies to spend much more time looking at the physical and emotional well-being of staff, as well as a very different leadership style that trusts staff to deliver and to assess them on what they deliver rather than necessarily the hours that they've traditionally worked. Of course, technology will become critical to that, as it already is, and tracking of product deliveries, etc., for those who are providing products will be really, really important. And that new norm will not only be important for how we work with our staff, but also how we work with our partners, suppliers, and customers. And certainly for those of us who have a direct link with customers, differentiating our brand and delighting our customers as we move forward is going to be a challenge as we start those introductions virtually. But we've got lots of different ideas and ways of doing that, and we'll continue to work closely with the wonderful Kerry from IPR, who's been working with us around really engaging with our customers. You wouldn't expect me not to mention cost control and scalability, but that becomes just as important as it's always been, as well as continuing to work and enhance our partnerships. Partnerships are really, really important to me. And I've listed on this chart some of my key partners and suppliers, many of whom I've been working with for over 20 years. So Steve Williams from Williams Photography, for instance, worked with me at ExxonMobil, MRH, Committee, and he also works with me on various personal projects and my charity programs. So I have a strong network, and you know, I'm very loyal to my partners, and my partners are loyal to me, and we work very strongly across a network, as indeed I hope a lot of you will feel me part of your personal networks from a Women in Marine perspective and able to reach out both for services, for mentoring, talking, etc. So my partners obviously include photography, PR, IT, the wonderful Nikki from Moonline Venue Solutions, events management, property and boat management companies, the wonderful Joe from Heritage Inline Designs, Clarendon Art, as well as merchandise companies and interior designers. And all of them really important as I move forward with my business, but also working with me to support my charity partners too. Now I talked about committee boats, UK and Caribbean. But as we've looked at the boats, we've looked at creative ways of bringing people to test the boats. We've also looked at how can we leverage our costs and scale to develop into other ideas. And I've had lots of brainstorming sessions, both with my partners, employees, and other things to continue to look at those. And looking at that, what we've realized is really important is aligning around our core brand and values. If you're looking at expanding your company, getting into something completely new is much harder than to expand the base that you have today. So we wanted to build on existing customers. And in doing that, we looked at 2 key trends that we believe will be part of the new norm post the pandemic. Staycations, certainly through the pandemic and after the pandemic, will continue to be important. And people's attitude to their staycations will be very different from what they've been historically. You know, people when they visited abroad would charter a boat for the day. maybe not so much if they were in the UK for a weekend. Now people are spending 2 weeks in the UK for their staycations. We're getting lots of requests for boat charters. Equally well, working in a different environment, team building and team rewards are very different. So we know there's a huge demand for both team building events and hampers. And that's how the bespoke collection was born. We started talking about yacht charters and hampers. What were the common things with committee boats, UK and Caribbean? And bespoke very much came through. We're going to have a common customer base across, but it builds on those customers. It builds on links that we have with concierge companies and hotels. And it also gives us the scale and the leverage to expand the brand. We've already started thinking about your bespoke proposals, your bespoke holiday lets, your bespoke properties, etc., etc. So that retiring and taking it easy is looking like a step a long way away. Some really exciting things ahead of us. And we'll continue to work with those, with our philanthropic partners and the charities we support. So the boat charters. Your bespoke charters will be based in both the UK and in Barbados. We'll start, but with more boats on orders, with two bravers, two committees. At the bottom, the Braver 35, and at the top, the Isola 33. But also added to the collection is my beautiful Discovery 58, Octopussy. All of our boats will only be available for skippered day charters. They're my babies, and I want to make sure that they're looked after. So we have a brilliant skipper who'll be skippers who'll be looking after them in the UK, and really making sure our customers and our clients have an exceptional day for their charters. We'll be linking the amazing boats with luxury food, bespoke drinks, etc., and hoping that they love them as much as I do and are keen to place an order afterwards. In Barbados, we'll have at the moment, but more adding, a Venezia 34, my Venezia 34 Octopussy. And again, gorgeous photos, very different things to see with swimming for turtles, etc., but a great experience for our customers. And for all of those, bespoke hampers and catering as part of that. If we're providing hampers for our charters, it makes a lot of sense to provide hampers to our corporate clients, but also to other boat owners. The number of times I've had a rush to the supermarket to pull something together and would have really welcomed the opportunity to pick up the phone and be able to really have something amazing developed and delivered to the boats. So your bespoke collection, starting with yacht charters and hampers, working in coordination with Tracy, my PA, plus also Nikki from Moonlight Solutions, to really deliver an outstanding offer to both our existing customers, plus those enjoying staycations and corporate clients in the UK. Now, I've mentioned corporate social responsibility, giving back, etc. And it's something that's really, really important to me. I recognise how fortunate I am and how blessed I am. And I feel it's important to use the skills I have to not only historically make money for corporations, and indeed myself, but to give back and to help charities and other organisations. Now, as we've been through the pandemic, it's been a great opportunity for people to give back and actually to help charities. It actually helps you manage change in organisations and build teams and use those resources in a quiet period. And sharing of skills is as important to the charities and the networks as actually giving money. Now, of course, the best is if you can do both. And I'm delighted that my employees, my partners and suppliers, including my personal suppliers, all participate in the programs I have. I'm passionate and they're passionate about them. And it works well. You know, I've done this across 20 different countries with Malaria No More when I worked for ExxonMobil, across 1,200 different retail service stations when I ran the UK operation in the UK for Esso, including different methods of site operations between distributors, company operated, the Tesco Alliance, raising money for Marie Curie, and then within MRH, raising money for the 22 different air ambulance associations. Now, as you'll have read, the charities have been hit even more than businesses. And sadly, while the government have made one donation, subsequent donations haven't been forthcoming to charities, and they've had to really work hard to raise money. I'm delighted that across the UK and the Caribbean, in the 2 years of the pandemic, we've donated over $500,000 to the charities we support in the UK and also in Barbados. Not just through donations, through sales, etc., but also through programs that we've run for them. In the UK, we actively support the National Lodstow Hatchery and the Cornwall Air Ambulance, and the Nature Fun Ranch in Barbados, which is a charity for children who suffer abuse and from extreme poverty. And I'm certainly looking forward to extending this into other charity partnerships in 2021. You can imagine the things that we're looking at from a wildlife perspective to link in with the hamper partnership. And here's a great example from the air ambulance. This was the 12 Days of Christmas challenge that we ran at the end of 2020. This was sponsored by Committee UK and Caribbean, but many of my existing suppliers, musicians, artists, chefs, my florists, joined in to do an amazing set of webinars and online seminars, as well as an incredible auction featuring work from many of the Clarendon artists. And we raised 145,000 in just those 12 days. So a massive thank you to all those partners who participated. And I think it shows what taking the business skills that all of us have and applying them to charity can really do to make a difference. So what worries me and what keeps me up at night? Well, here are the 5 things that worry me looking forward and are on my screens as making sure that I'm always on touch with, and I have a plan for everyone and a series of different routes depending on what happens. Now, we could spend the whole webinar talking about this, and it's probably the time for another discussion. But I just want to pick 2 of these, which are very topical at the moment. One is around the environmental focus, electric engines and synthetic fuels. I certainly have a personal preference, which is a little bit different from the politicians, and that actually I think synthetic fuels coupled with redesigned engines such as the new Cox 300 diesels, for instance, really is the best end-to-end environmental option for meeting the environmental marine targets. However, politicians and indeed many customers have a different view of that. And within that, electric engines are starting to get more traction. And indeed, we've already supplied our first committee, the Netsia 22, with an electric engine, and we have another 22 and 2 25s on order. Those will all be used on rivers and lakes rather than at sea. Electric engines have some very, very positive attributes in terms of speed, but they also have some challenges in terms of range. These boats typically would have a range of about 60 kilometers. And depending on your charging, would take anywhere between 4 and 8 hours to charge. So some very positives, but also some challenges. And I think it's going to be interesting to see how this evolves. Certainly at Committee and Committee Votes UK and Caribbean, we're ready for whichever scenario happens, and can provide our customers with whichever thing they prefer. The other thing is I want to just briefly touch on is being ready for the unexpected. Many of you will have heard of the Caribbean volcanic ash from the eruption at St. Vincent. We've been very badly hit in Barbados, and I've spent much of the last week and a half talking about cleaning up volcanic ash, keeping the boats, properties, etc. clean, and sorting the problems. And we're getting there, but I think it's going to be a long task with more ash coming. But always looking for the positives in the negatives. Volcanic ash is incredibly rich in nutrients. And the Barbados soil is not great in terms of nutrients. So everything that we collect, we're bagging up. And we're taking it to the Nature Fun Ranch, the charity I support in Barbados. And the children, when it's safe to be outside and to do so, are digging that ash into the soil, resulting in a program which is just going to be amazing, where we can introduce new plants and things that they'll be able to grow on the farm, increasing their income, but also giving the children great skills in another area. So again, I say always look for the opportunities. Things are not always negative. There's nearly always a positive and something that you can capitalize on. So really, just in summary, re-emphasizing my comments around ensure your business is resilient. Make sure you understand your costs. You have alternative options and alternative portfolio, and you're always watching that cash flow. Never be too proud to learn from others. Look around, see what other people in your sector are doing, and learn, copy. Copies, it's an obvious thing to do. Keep looking at the positives and make sure that you develop and you protect both your brands and your employees, and also, where you can, make sure you have the right philanthropy strategy in place, but continue to believe in yourselves, look after yourself, and make sure you stay resilient as well as you keeping yourself resilient. I certainly only allow myself to watch the news once a day, otherwise you get so depressed by what's happening in the world. So that's a very quick summary of me, my business, my views on resilience, and how we've developed the business to be more resilient in the future. I haven't talked about being a woman in a male environment, either within the oil industry or within the marine industry. I've been very fortunate in that I don't think it's ever made a difference to me. Having said that, I am who I am, and I won't compromise that. I've always delivered, maybe in a very different way to some of my male colleagues, but that's all. I've been fortunate, that's been valued. And staying who I am and staying with the things that are important to me and the way I work has fared well for me. And I would encourage all of you to do that. Be yourself, maintain your own ethics and the way you work, and then you'll be successful. I'm delighted to be part of this network and hope to have an opportunity to meet with many of you in the future, and to work together on other initiatives. So I'd like to now hand over to Zella for some questions.
Thank you so much. That was really, really informative and interesting and useful and enjoyable as well. So thanks ever so much, Karen. I really, really appreciate that. So the first question that's come in is, did you say that you supported the Cornish Lobster Hatchery?
Yes, the National Lobster Hatchery, which is actually based in Cornwall.
Brilliant. And the question is, why on earth did you choose that?
Because of my goddaughter.
Okay.
I have a charitable foundation that supports a number of different things that ultimately my goddaughter will inherit. And we've been looking at bringing in charities that she's as passionate about as I am. And so her huge passion is about marine conservation. She wants to be a marine biologist. Every time I sit and I eat a prawn or a lobster, I see Sky sitting there shaking her head and say, naughty Auntie Karen, you shouldn't do it. And I had amazing times visiting the National Lobster Hatchery with Sky. And it's just brilliant. They have a great development. You can sponsor the little baby lobsters. They have an educational program. But they also actually believe you should eat lobsters, which is great for me because I love lobsters. They believe that development is important for the breeding program and sustainability, etc. It's a really fun charity and a great one to work with.
Awesome. That's particularly interesting as well, because we've got a piece in MIN this morning, Marine Industry News, about a blue lobster which was found offshore. So just everybody check that out.
Yeah, that was incredible, wasn't it?
Yeah. So another question which has come in, again on the charity theme, is you mentioned about sharing skills of the business with charities. And the question is specifically, what kind of business skills have you shared or your company shared with charities to help them develop?
Okay, different in different environments, depending on what the charity needs. So for instance, if we take Barbados as an example, I've worked with them very much on mentoring the CEO and helping him very much in terms of interfaces with politicians, with putting together amazing contracts for supply with oil companies, utility companies, that kind of thing. With the Cornwall Air Ambulance, for instance, we've very much focused with them on the fundraising elements associated with that. So we've used the PR team, helping them to get broader exposure, equally well, helping with running the different campaigns from an organisational perspective. I'm also working with them currently on introducing pennies. I don't know how many people are aware of pennies. Penny is the digital charity box going forwards. You can swipe your cards. We used to have them in all of my service stations, and you have the option to give 25p or whatever it will be. And it's a very easy way to engage. So I'm currently working with them to launch that and roll that out across a number of different businesses. So very, very different from marketing to consulting to mentoring.
Awesome, thank you. So another question, how has the pandemic affected business forecasting?
Really, really hard. I guess for me, because of my background, I've always been used to having to predict what the outcome would look like against a number of different scenarios. In the oil industry, the price of $1 a barrel of oil is impossible to predict. And as you can imagine, that has a massive, massive difference. So I've always had a best case, a worst case, and a most likely case. And I've continued to do that within the pandemic. I have to say, historically, I was pretty good at predicting the most typical case. I have to say, during the pandemic, we swung from best to worst as well. You know, the variability in predictions are much, much wider during the pandemic because it's hard to predict. We've not been there before.
Absolutely. Thank you. So another question, you mentioned that new leadership skills for managers were paramount for trends arising from the pandemic. Can you embellish on those new skills that are required, please?
Yeah, probably the biggest and the hardest skills is trust when you're managing in a virtual environment. I remember when I first moved our retail team to home offices, many of the people who were based in the head office, in head office-based functions, thought we were crazy. Their view was, but you move people to home office, they'll be spending all their time on the golf course. They won't be working. They'll have their phones and then they'll talk to you on their phones, but they won't really be at home working. And, you know, you really have to trust your people. and you have to learn how to assess them based on the quality of the output rather than necessarily the hours that they work. And that's not only important in a pandemic. I actually believe it's a really important skill for managers to give females in business the flexibility. Many people with young children, particularly people returning from maternity leave, etc., don't work or don't in an optimum way a typical 9 to 5 day. And therefore, to have the added flexibility of being able to stop when a baby's crying, to be able to finish at 3 o'clock to pick your children up from school and instead work at 8 o'clock at night is something that's really important. And that's always been important, working virtually, but becomes even more. So managers have to learn how to trust. It's also harder to read people, of course, when you're on a Zoom call or whatever. So going forward, it will be important that people get together and that they have a structured way of getting together, but it won't always be in the office. It might be in the office once a week. It may actually be in the pub down the road once a month, or in a Costa coffee shop or whatever. So it's about embracing those different ways of working, talking to people, trusting people, giving people the flexibility to deliver, giving people the tools to enable them to deliver, both in terms of skills development and also IT skills, but also recognizing when people are struggling and getting on top of it very, very quickly to solve problems.
Brilliant, thank you. There was another question actually that came in about how will remote companies react to losing control of remote workers? What advice would you give them about losing control? But I think you've pretty much covered that with that answer already, so thank you for that. What do you feel the most important thing is that you have implemented into the business since the pandemic?
I think it's about looking more broadly and challenging the traditional elements. So finding ways that we can do virtual tours of the boats, using PR more broadly. I think in our business, it was very much, let's get the boats out on the water, let's have them seen, let's look for recommendations. And during the pandemic, that's not been possible. So we've been having to be much more creative about videos on our websites, working with people, working with media, also looking at lifestyle media. So we've done a lot of advertising, and indeed will continue to, with lifestyle publications. Because interestingly, one of our big customer bases, if I look at our customers are of course people who love the water today, people who have motorboats and who have sailing boats who want to get there a little bit quicker, families who want an experience on the water. The other interesting group, though, is supercar owners. Now, that's a little bit of a weird kind of tangent to take, but people who have supercars love going from A to B fast. And it really doesn't matter if it's a boat or a car, but when they've want the next toy, a boat's great as well. So I think what I've brought to this is really about always looking at the business broadly, and very much, I have a glass half full approach. And I've not been knocked down by the pandemic. I've just seen the business opportunities. My team dread when we're on a call, and I said, well, do you think we could just, and that normally means, can we just take a look at this and let's do something that none of you have thought about, but let's go do it.
Brilliant, lovely. So I think that's all the questions. I'm going to be honest with the seminar now and tell you that I lost my Zoom camera a little while ago, and my colleague has been texting me the questions that have come into her directly, and then we've had a couple more. So I'm hoping that that's all the questions asked. So all I want to do now is just say to everyone, thank you ever so much to Karen. And if you have any more questions for Karen, you can contact her via the committee social media feeds on all platforms, and we will have this recording going out on Min's channel shortly. And Suzanne, I wonder if you'd like to say a few more words before we just come back to me.
There we go. Of course, I can't thank you enough. Karen, you have given us such a great insight. It was so exciting to hear about your experience, where you came from, and all of that gave insight to you to share with us on just what the important key issues are for us to continue in business now, which of course are resilience is a mindset, isn't it? And you talked about that being a futuristic mindset, which is so important, and that change is innate and we have to almost embrace it instead of being scared of it. So all those sleepless nights I have, I'll be thinking of you now, Karen, saying, now, this is supposed to make me sleep better, not stay up at night. You talked about partnerships being key, which I can't agree with you more. Partnerships allow those incremental jumps forward, and I appreciated hearing that from you. And then just working with the unexpected, your volcano situation, taking the ash and turning it into growth of new plants and getting children and communities involved. So you've taken all of those maybe traditional business ideas and given us all this new insight and a positive view of it. And I am just so proud that Bart Marine is able to co-sponsor this and be part of this so that everybody could hear that insight. And thank you. And thank you again, everybody, for coming along with Marine Industry News on this.
That's brilliant. Thank you so much, Suzanne. So just falls to me to once again say thank you so much to Karen and to Suzanne and to everybody that's come on the online seminar today. It's been wonderful. Well, it was wonderful seeing you in the first half until my Zoom dropped out. Who knows what happened there? But keep sending us your news to Marine Industry News. We always want to hear your stories and what you're up to. If you know anybody or would be interested in hosting a seminar as part of our Woman in Marine series, then let us know. And thank you once again, and we'll see you all again soon. Thank you. Cheerio.